Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Chris and Andre Show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Chris and Andre Show. This is episode 57.
Like
I'm
a
Andre.
good bottle of ketchup. You went right into that. Didn't even give me a chance.
Yeah, I know. I'm Andre.
And I'm Chris.
Oh, man. Yeah, so, you know what's funny? I've noticed that the news cycle is different with our new president. And I, in a weird way, like it, but in a weird way, feel like something's missing. It's like I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop, and that's been kind of an adjustment.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I have found somewhat frustrating lately is the need for certain media outlets to like constantly compare what President Biden is doing or not doing to what some asshole did before or didn't do. Like, I got a notification on my phone, White House announces Biden's name will not be on stimulus checks. Like, yeah, no shit, because he's not a narcissistic asshole. Like, he doesn't need the credit because he knows, like, this is my plan. This is what I said I was going to do. And this is, I'm not the person who's in Congress making it happen, but I'm working to make sure that what I think needs to happen is getting done. And
It's funny though. Even when you take that part out of it, it's interesting. I know we talked about the fact that the former president wasn't able to get any real legislation to pass that he had authored. And right out of the gate, President Biden has. And I think that's a feather in his cap, one way or the other. And I get there's some issues about the some of the targeting and some, Joe Manchin.
Mnuchin,
Manchin, the guy from West Virginia.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know who you're talking about. I have no idea how to pronounce his last name. We'll just call him Congressman Joe.
He's a senator.
Okay, well, I mean, that's a member of Congress.
Oh God, all right. I don't want to walk down that road with you. Yeah, Joe Manchin. I get the moderate angle that he's going on. I just don't know how I feel about it. I think it's kind of it seems a little bit disingenuous, if I'm being honest. I think he kind of likes playing both sides of the fence here.
Sure. I guess I can understand on one side that your constituency in West Virginia is theoretically more. I mean, didn't West Virginia go for Trump?
Yeah, but the governor of West Virginia actually disagreed with Manchin's changes to the bill. And I think overall, like the reduction of the unemployment benefits by $100 a week, a deadline for unemployment benefits, support from the federal government. Now, hopefully the economy can kind of do a rebound by the end of summer. And I don't mean like a full, different trajectory, but I do kind of mean like things will start to take traction.
Yeah.
I just don't think that that's the best call. I still feel after watching, and we've talked about this before, like what's going to happen now is a lot of things in the economy are going to be the new norm, right? If I can have most of my employees work from home, I'd have most of my employees work from home.
Yeah.
Because you don't need the physical location. Retail, the way that a lot of restaurants were able to do actually a lot of retail in general and food service were able to do curbside service. I don't think that's going away.
No, I mean, I totally agree with that. Like, I think because you're going to experience some permanent reduction in seating capacity, right? Yeah. Like, there will be some level of restrictions. Maybe it's not 6 feet, forever, but there'll be something that's required because I mean, like the coronavirus and COVID-19 are not the last, airborne respiratory or airborne, disease that
Yeah.
we're going to have to deal with. And, wearing masks, right, out in public is probably going to become part of the new norm and for most people.
I think I'm probably still going to wear a mask in public, if I'm being honest. I actually ordered some disposable mask because my problem with masks are my glasses, and I haven't really found anything that works well. So I did buy these lens cloths that could, they do a good job of keeping the fog and condensation, but some days I forget to like wipe my lenses with this cloth, and it's like, that's inconvenient.
Well, just spit on them.
Yeah, not going to do that either.
That's what you do with your goggles when you're swimming, right? You just hock a loogie into there and rub it around. You're like, all right, I'm good to go.
So and knowing that front, also, I actually don't wear goggles when I go swimming. The rare times I do go swimming. So my eyes end up burning from the chlorine.
Yeah. I'm with you there.
So, but I think there's going to be a lot of changes to the economy that we haven't really factored in yet that are going to be longstanding. And so I don't know. There's just a lot of, I don't know if it's posturing. I don't know if there's a cry to norms of fiscal responsibility especially from the moderate and conservative Democrats. But I just feel like now is the time to go big, to kind of, even if you miss, like, you don't get a home run, but you get like a double. We've kind of stopped some of the bleeding. And I think the economy is going to have some bleeding until next year. And putting the money back into the actual real world economy is not a bad thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'm with you in that I guess I question how genuine the sentiment is, right?
Yeah.
Is it really that you're concerned about fiscal, responsibility, or is it posturing and just playing politics for whatever reason? And if it's the latter, then, trying to keep things relatively clean so I don't have as much work to do. But fill in the blank there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if it's the former, like, okay, then is this 100, how is this $100 a week reduction, right, in unemployment benefits? How is that proving out your fiscal or fiscal responsibility, right? Like, that's explain how these changes to the bill ultimately are achieving, or alleviating your concerns, and then maybe I'd actually believe it. But
yeah, I don't know. I just feel, I'm in the same, I mean, obviously we're in the same boat, but it's just kind of like, there are a lot of unknowns about the economy. And again, we live in Disney. Like, I was in downtown Raleigh today, and I noticed a lot of new construction.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like a little bit, I'm saying like pretty much every block I was on, they were cramming new houses there. I was in Johnson County on Monday or yesterday. Yeah. And same thing. They were cramming houses where you would have thought, like, well, that doesn't fit.
I mean, Fuquay Arena, like driving down 40, it's just new construction, somewhat newer homes that are all along the corridor there. And of course, they're working to expand that. And it's, it's just a nightmare.
Yeah, so
it's 4 lanes right now. I'm sure they're going to go to 8, and it's still, like, by the time they're done making it 8, it's going to be way too late. I don't know, like, the infrastructure planning is so far behind.
Yeah, the growth. Yeah.
It's
I know in 08 and 09, when I used to get like population reports, because I was a realtor, 100 new people move in and out of Wake County every day, right? That's a lot of growth. That's like insane. So whether you look at what that does to potential families over a 2-year time span as people move and later on they settle down and they decide this is going to be their home. I mean, that's a lot of growth.
Yeah.
You look at new school construction in Wake County, that's hit or miss depending on which part of the county you're in. But I think this time we're actually going to feel some impact of what that really means, because a lot of our industry isn't just tech companies. It's a lot of retail and service industries. And I don't think we're going to be able to compensate for the losses. Like I saw a lot of um, the traditional like mom and pop restaurants downtown. A lot of them have boarded up, so there's going to be some impact here. Now we're not as bad as California where they have a heavy service industry. But it's going to be I think we're going to feel this one. And I don't know what the after effects are going to be.
No, but the other thing to consider here in North Carolina and Wake County and some of the outer line, counties as well, is the sports revenue, right? From college and even high school, like the revenue that they're able to generate from football,
Right.
basketball, and the like, is a significant chunk of the overall income for a lot of those, especially some of the smaller towns, that are out in the more rural areas. And so I'm sure that has played a huge role in some of those areas being harder hit, more recently than others. But I mean, even in the local area, think about the events that they host at PNC outside of sports and all of that, and all of the people that get to work concessions and, the parking lot attendants and all of that stuff. It's like, those are all jobs that have essentially disappeared this year.
Yeah, I've been pondering this one for a while and I don't have an answer, but I think that I do kind of feel the other shoe's going to drop with the economy. I don't know what the impact is going to be overall, but I don't think it's going to be good.
Well, supposedly there's some concern that this new, $2 trillion plan is too much now, because we're quote unquote rounding the corner with vaccine distribution, finally getting up to a somewhat reasonable, rate. Although I still haven't gotten mine. My parents did get both of theirs, which I was glad. But I just, that what it's ultimately going to do is cause massive inflation as things improve in the economy by themselves, that you're basically throwing gas onto a smoldering fire, and instead of getting like, a nice little, okay, now the fire's going and it can burn on its own, it's like fireball, and inflation, goes through the roof. And
but that's not the way inflation works though. That's the fact of that. And I've heard a couple of arguments about inflation, and it's not traditionally like you'll get it on like goods such as gasoline. And I know gas is going up.
Yeah.
I literally paid, I was at the gas pump the other day or last week, and I'm paying for gas and it's like $3.20. I'm like, oh my God, gas went up to $3.20. But I'm the type of guy, it's like, what am I going to do about it? I need gas in my car. Right?
Yeah. I mean, you could drive to Cary and go to the Harris Teeter fuel station that's right down my house, because the gas is only $2.35 there, and you get 3 cents off with your Vic card. It's like $1 a gallon.
Well, the problem is there's a lot of problems.
I know. One, the amount of gas that you would use to come out here and do that would negate. Yes, obviously.
And two, like my car takes premium, right?
Okay.
So it's like, so it's like, I mean, you need gas.
Okay, but you're the one who chose to buy a car that needs premium gas.
Totally get that.
So, I mean,
but I also know,
crybaby.
No, but I did the math. Even with my Explorer, to fill up the tank with my Explorer.
Oh God, those things! I mean, that was a 20-gallon tank on that, right?
Yeah. So it cost me the same amount as premium for my vehicle.
Yeah.
So it's like it was a wash.
Right, and then the fuel economy was probably way better on.
Yeah. So for me, does that make sense? I did the math. It's like It's
No,
like,
I
yeah,
totally get it. You buy gas less often. It's a smaller tank, so you're not having to fill it up as often. Or well, you fill it up a little bit more often, but because of the greater fuel economy, it's probably even a wash there.
right.
So yeah, ultimately, no, I totally get it. I do.
Yeah.
I just
So,
like
but
giving you shit because
no,
usually
because
I'm on the receiving end of that type of criticism.
you don't know that I think about things like all the way through.
Yes,
Though.
I
It's like
do. I don't know that you think about things. Of course, I know that you thought about that. You have a
somebody was
spreadsheet saved on your computer or hard drive or in the cloud somewhere that's like fuel economy comparison.
somebody was giving me crap because I was talking about like my transition to not eating meat
Yeah.
and like just some of the things I said, and I was like, he actually said, but think about what he just said. He thought about where fish were coming from, like from blah whatever store I use as an example, and because I actually researched, he goes, his decisions are probably not normal. I'm like, no, they're not, because I want plans A through D, please.
Okay, but like, I don't. That doesn't seem like a good enough reason in my mind. I mean, I don't know. I've been struggling a little bit with this whole it's okay for everybody else to eat meat. And it's not I'm not going to become one of those assholes. I promise.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, like for the longest time I was just be like, "Oh, it's cool, whatever," like you're just but now I'm starting to get like kind of, well, all right. But that's kind of like the same thing as, all right, well, it's okay for you to drive your, ridiculously old, fuel inefficient vehicle that's producing giant clouds of smog, emissions. Like, that's not ultimate. Like, we have laws that are now in place because that, and I feel like I'm getting off of that super preachy crap. I don't know.
Well, but to be fair, the other day I was eating dinner and it came to my mind that, I kid you not, as I'm eating dinner, if we switched to a primarily plant-based diet, we would have enough food to feed just about everybody on the planet. Like the amount of like space you use to farm animals and to raise them is typically 2 to 3 times more than that of growing crops.
Right. And then especially when you consider the opportunities for like hydroponic growth systems and indoor growth, like those type of situations where you have temperature control, climate control, you have much better control over bugs and that sort of thing. I think that there is a lot of opportunity. And then, you're not required to be in a specific climate to grow
Right.
that stuff, right? Then you can be able to more locally source these ingredients or foods that are grown typically elsewhere, because now you can recreate that climate in an indoor environment.
Yeah, so I mean, so your point is not wrong, but I think it's also interesting. The second part to that is my daughter was telling me there's this new, apparently seitan has gone viral on TikTok, and I was like, okay, that's old news, but it was interesting that it was actually a plus for social media because people don't know variable X, and once they discover it, they're interested in it. So I thought that was kind of cool too.
Yeah.
So I see that the 2 points for me are like, there is a great opportunity to feed like hungry people, especially in this country, if we made a small adjustment to our diets. And two, informing people about the benefits and the options and different ways you can, supplement or substitute some things. They're that's the benefit of that information is helpful. It gives people the opportunity to learn about it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I think part of it is it's because for most people, they're not going to be able to just one day go like, okay, now I'm moving plant-based. Like I was talking to somebody the other day who said that for Lent, she had made the plan to go vegan. Because she like owns a small cafe and they have some vegan items. And she was like, part of it is that I want to learn how to cook that stuff better. And I knew if I forced myself to have to eat it, like, explicitly, then I would start to find some new recipes that I like that I could introduce at the cafe. And so she was like, but I just was not prepared for it.
Right.
Like I hadn't done the research. I hadn't looked into it enough and kind of mentally prepared myself for what to substitute for certain things and how to kind of get around it. And so she was like, so I've cheated a little bit. I'm eating seafood, obviously not vegan, but and I was like, it's a start, right? Like, you can try that. And then, maybe the next time that you feel like you want to do that, then you have an idea of what it is that you're missing. And maybe it takes a couple of different times for you to figure out, okay, these are the things that I need in order to be able to kind of exist without animal products.
I mean, remember, like, my wife's from a coastal town in Peru. I mean, she's okay with probably not eating beef or pork, but seafood, that's kind of hard. And I totally get that. Like, you don't eat coastal food in New York. Like, it's like, no, that came out of the Hudson.
That came out of New Jersey.
Yeah. That's not a thing. So I get that. There's a lot of opportunities that we can do. And I'm not like a hyper environmentalist. That's just not, because I don't.
No, but it's the research, right? Like, at the end of the day, if you look at the numbers, there are a lot more opportunities for us to make changes to, like climate change, to, our environment around us, to, what we're doing. I mean, the quality of life for these animals, right, that are going through this process of becoming food. And sure, some of them maybe aren't super like aware, I'm going to get eaten, right? Or, this is different than what my life should be like.
They know.
But yeah, like, at the end of the day, who are you to decide? How many times am I going to say at the end of the day? Who are you to decide that it's okay for those animals to be? I mean, people flip out because people in China eat dogs, right? Like, because of the big dog festival. And I am not saying that I'm on board for eating dogs, because I think that's super weird. But I also am now kind of the opinion that eating any animal is really kind of super weird. Like, and that's for me, again, like, that's for me personally. I've always had this really weird, like, I had to super disconnect where my food actually came from with me eating it. If it looked too much or reminded me for whatever reason too much of the thing that it actually was, then I was just not there for it.
Yeah, I think I've never looked at it that way, because I'm not wired that way. I just think that it can't be healthy, right? So if you showed me the pen where the chickens were raised, and I saw that, like, for example, back in the day, over this one summer, I worked at the stables on NC State Fairgrounds, right? And it was like my community, like, just trying to get back to the community. I thought that'd be nice to do. First of all,
community service.
No, it wasn't community service. It was actually because I was like trying to be like, it wasn't community service.
I know, but the way that you described it,
I was like trying.
Made it sound like you were trying so hard not to call it community service.
But even that term has got such a negative connotation.
It does, which is ridiculous, because it's such a positive thing.
Yeah, I was trying to give back to the community, and so I volunteered over the summer, and it gave me and I'm a city kid, so it gave me an insight on the hard work that goes into, keeping and managing stables and the treatment of animals while they're there. Because once I noticed that one horse didn't have water, I would actually go extra times to make sure they all had the proper amount of food, because it made me feel bad. And I tried to make sure their stables are really clean and blah, blah, blah. So if you showed me that, and although we don't eat horse meat, but if you showed me that you're mistreating the animals in just that aspect, I would be kind of against that, But not to the point of where like I wouldn't eat like fried chicken at some point or hot wings, but it's just like that's just wrong. Like you, the farmer, like you control that environment. That's your job. And if you're going to be a good steward, be a good steward. If you're going to be a crappy steward, that's just wrong. You're just a piece of crap.
But isn't so? Correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe you're not familiar with this enough to comment on it. But the way I've kind of understood it is that, like, we talk about big tech and big pharma, big farming has really kind of taken over almost all of the mom and pop farms that used to exist.
Actually, I've actually done research on because it's actually one of those curiosities for me, and it actually has. They are buying farms like it's nobody's business,
or leasing the farmland and basically saying,
no,
yeah,
they lease it. They're actually buying it from said family
and then leasing it back to them.
Yeah, so that's like double dipping in many, because that's all they know, right? That's why the hog farmers in North Carolina, they're like a lot of the big families, they haven't sold to Smithfields because they know they own the market for the most part. And Smithfields would buy the moderate to dying farms, because of whatever financial pressures they have. But again, there are ways to I don't know. There are ways to do things right. It's just that we've become so profit minded that we forget about it's a slow burn and not just like you're trying to hit a home run. That's what bothers me. Like you can always make money, but if your only objective is to make money, then you're probably going to cut corners. And it goes back to stewardship for me. If you have that opportunity to be a good steward, be a good steward.
See, and it's interesting because I've always kind of associated that type of behavior, the kind of poor stewardship and the chasing profits at all costs or any costs, to be primarily rooted in the publicly held companies, right? Because I feel like a lot of times it's, well, we have to figure out every penny that we can raise the value of our stock equals X amount of bonus for board members or for stockholders or whatever it may be. And so it's like, whatever we can have to do in order to drive this price of the stock up is what we're ultimately going to do. It's not really what's best for the company. It's not what's best for the business. It's not what's best for the customer. But if in this moment we can increase value, without seeing some sort of long-term negative impact, then we're going to go ahead and cut that corner. But I heard a story the other day about a private, like family-owned company, a very, very popular and very wealthy, or, very, high revenue family-owned company that recently laid off an entire branch of their team abroad because essentially the way that it was explained from somebody inside is that, well, there are more people that are now family members that are in control and therefore living off of the company dime. And so in order to create more money for them, they're cutting costs somewhere. And so they said, well, we're just going to get rid of all these people over here. And I'm sure to some degree it's a little bit of an oversimplification, but part of me is sitting there saying, like, man, everybody is just losing their damn minds and saying, who cares about building, some sort of actual good company? Like, it's either I'm doing a startup with the intention of getting bought out so I can go retire on a beach somewhere and never have to lift a finger, or I just feel like there's so little effort to build a long-lasting company up from, the ground. And
there's the fable of the golden goose, right?
Yeah.
Like you can get all the eggs and never feed the goose. Eventually you've spent all the eggs. You've whittled them down, you melted them down, and you sold it for whatever, and you've acquired more things, but you let the goose die. Well, you lost. At the end of the day, you're going to lose. And the second part to that is another example of how you want to continue to feed the golden goose. So there's the founder of Jotform. I was reading an article about him, and he started the company And it's inspiring to me, right? Because he didn't take any VC funding. He kept his day job for a number of years,
So
blah, blah, blah.
he bootstrapped.
Yeah, literally bootstrapped. And now they have like 200. Yeah. I was, the more I think about when you throw things in there, I'm like, I'm going to try to avoid that. But like, you got me that time. Like, because my brain it really appreciates the joke, but it's like, come on. Now I'm going to throw out area examples for the sake of doing it.
Just for the shit of it.
But he worked his day job, kept the lights on, blah, blah, blah. 8 years later, he's got 200,000 monthly users, right? They're making not money, money hand over fist, but they're okay. And the moral of the story was, be passionate about what you're doing. It doesn't mean that and I always say, you don't have to hit a home run every time. Get on base, right? And that's the hard part. So imagine when you have some level of financial success and you feel like you're obligated to, put your family on. And I totally 100% agree with that. Like if I ever get to a point where I can hire and work with my friends and family, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to hire and work with my friends and family. In no like particular order, but
in no particular order.
Well, yeah, because it's family then friends, and so, but
okay, but just to be clear, you said I am family.
You are family. Okay. So yeah, cool. So it's like I get first dibs. But the thing is, you have to earn that spot.
Yeah.
So yes, I would hire them at a competitive salary, at a comparable salary in a like situation. Yes. But would they have opportunities for more? Yes.
Right.
The average employee probably would not, but family and friends, yes. And you do it gradually.
Right. But because like you wouldn't hire Jay Lee to be like some executive vice president of something that she has no background or experience in.
That'd be crazy.
Exactly.
That'd be absolutely killing the goose.
But that's what people do all the time, right? Like you see it happen.
Because it's because the and this is not a knock against capitalism, because I am a capitalist, but you want to think about, I always go back to what Jeff Bezos said. He basically said, every company is going to die. My job is to keep this company alive for 25 years longer than what it would have been, or 50 years longer than what it would have been. That's inevitable. Like there is a handful of companies that have been around for longer than or close to 100 years in this country. A handful of companies. Because I think the people that started those companies probably saw and understand the same thing that Jeff understands. That it's eventually, if we don't evolve, if we don't think about the longevity of this organization, it will die.
So I assume, since you are on a first name basis with Jeff now, that you are not participating in the Amazon boycott this week.
No, I'm not.
Okay. Did you hear about it?
No, I have not.
So basically, it's supposed to be in support of the workers who are trying to unionize at Amazon in order to try and petition for better wages. I don't support. I'm unions. Informing the audience. Okay.
I know, but I don't support unions.
You don't support any unions?
For the most part, no. There's never been, since over the last 30 to 40 years, unions are no longer what they used to be.
Okay, but wouldn't you also say that over the last 30 or 40 years, I feel like we're at a point now, I mean, you think and I know that the minimum wage isn't everything, but the minimum wage is barely changed over that time period.
Okay, so
right? And so
here's a culmination of my feelings of that.
Yeah,
because I was listening to a story that kind of echoes that. A company I'm almost a fanboy of. They have fired Black employees unjustly, and I am a firm believer in basically, okay, that is unjust. but there is no option or alternative to that product.
Sure.
At some level, you have to start to create different options or alternatives for said product. And that's why I'm not going to try to you can boycott Amazon all you want. You can't wrestle them down. That's just not going to happen. You're punching way above your weight class.
Okay, so then is your theory that the best way to get Amazon to treat its workers better is to build a rival to Amazon that treats its workers better?
Yep.
Interesting.
I am so far removed from the now I do believe in like you said earlier.
I mean, I certainly don't hate that idea,
It's think about cancel culture, right? And I read an article that was basically saying it's never fully worked. Everybody that's been quote unquote canceled, they've all come back bigger and stronger. The country singer that dropped the N-bomb, dude's selling like his album sales have gone through the roof.
Yeah.
So I think that I do believe in a proper boycott. I still will always say cancel culture is just a distant cousin of boycotts.
Yeah.
So I agree with what you're trying to do. I don't think it's strategic enough. There's nothing anybody can do like right now to affect people's behaviors of using Amazon.
I agree. And I will say that 1 week of nobody, let's say literally everybody, right?
Yeah.
That is an Amazon customer they're still raking in. I mean, they're sitting on billions of dollars, right? Like 1 week isn't going to hurt them.
Yeah. It's not even a thing.
Yeah.
It's just not a thing.
No. And I mean, I agree. It was something that I had heard about, and I am not like intentionally participating. In fact, I had something that was delivered today.
Me too.
But
so you're going to buy it all this week, but not next week. You see my point?
Yeah, exactly. And that was the whole thing too. It was like, prepare yourself. Basically order everything ahead of time. And it is supposed to be like a very symbolic gesture as much as anything, I guess. But I'm with you in that it's really not going to ultimately do anything to further the cause of unionization at Amazon.
I mean, like the problem with the workers that they have is that that is the only option for them, they see as an employer, right? They typically put their warehouses in places that are economically depressed. They're putting 2 more in Wake County alone, over the next year.
So is that like a bad sign?
Well, you see they have the cash to play with. So one's in wherever Garner is. Yeah. I think Garner's got 2.
There's the one that's right off of 40 between Garner and Fuquay.
Yeah, and there's another one like right off of or close to South Saunders Street.
And then there's the other one that's up by RTP.
Yeah. So
because we used to drive by that all the time.
And they put their warehouses in places where they do have the opportunity to hire some of the lower paid employees, $15 an hour, and they hire them as temp employees, and they have to, I think they kind of bid for, quote unquote, bid for hours or when they're going to work. Mm-hmm. So it's really kind of dog eat dog, if I'm being honest. But it's all cyclical also. Like Amazon is not the first company to come into this area and attract a lower paid employee.
I mean, in a lot of ways, isn't it similar to what Walmart did?
No, it's actually similar. Like if you want to compare apples to apples, IBM used to hire a lot of temps and non-college grads. They pay them this is back in the mid to late 90s, like $13-14 an hour. Like I knew people that were either college students or, they would move from, I knew a group of dudes that moved from Greenville because they worked at IBM at this facility they had in Mooresville. Yeah, they were making bank, like 20 somethings and just like they were doing good, and then that ran out, and since then they all scattered throughout the country. So they're not the first one to do it. So I know that is a common practice. You can put a facility like that in a predominantly like middle class like area and attract people that want to be in that area, but they may not have the skill set to afford that area's lifestyle. And that's how you you get around those. So it's not they're not the first, nor will they be the last. The problem is like it's really looking at what community development really is, and how do you take the typically 33% of your like population and provide them with jobs like we talked about last week with affordable housing or the same opportunities as the more I don't want to use the word affluent, but the more like, I guess that's the best term or best word to use, to afford to be in that community. So there's like deeper problems than just unions, if I'm being honest. And Amazon just happens to be the biggest fish in the sea right now.
Yeah, I certainly agree. I think some of their like worker conditions and stuff like that has reportedly come out has been pretty.
Well, don't work there. And I
No,
know that's
I understand that. I mean, but to your point, what you say they're basically doing is hiring people that don't have the skill set to necessarily get another job.
well. So take Carrie for example, right? So the story I was telling you before. This is Carrie, and this is Carrie like mid to late 90s,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not as expensive as it is now, but would you imagine? So and these guys lived in Greenville. They're from that area, right? They moved from Greenville to make probably twice as much money, or probably 2/3 as much money as what they were able to make in Greenville, in a somewhat like unique situation. And they told their friends would like migrate from Greenville to Cary to get a job here. Another culprit of that would be Austin Foods, that later got bought by some other bakery like Nestle or some crap like that. Nabisco, yeah. They did the same thing. I knew a ton of people in this area that worked there. They were making, pretty decent salary back then. But when they got bought, they laid off a lot of people. So it's all cyclical, and it's all based on what what are you trying to identify as a problem? Is the problem that the employees don't feel like they're being treated fairly, but really like you just didn't read the fine print. It was never going to be a forever job. They could probably replace those people just as quick as they hire them, is my point. It's not, that's the real problem with Amazon, in my opinion.
Okay, so if that's the problem, like again, like I guess the question is, how do you solve that problem other than having the workers that are there do what they feel they need to do in order to secure better wages, better working conditions,
It's not, well, if I'm being honest, like it's not up to the company at that point. The company is doing it because they can get away with it. But if the employees took the extra money they were, and this is going to be borderline like hard to say. Let's say I moved from some other county in the state to work at Amazon or whatever, wherever it may be. I'm making more money. What am I doing with that extra money, that extra time I've earned by working less because I'm making more, but I can keep provide a life for myself? I'm going to figure out a way to get the skills, whether that be school or that be like apprenticeship or whatever, to like use that as a stepping point. Not to think that Amazon's going to be, I would never think that Amazon's a forever job. Now I say that, one, because it makes sense, and two, because I had a person tell me one time that their employees were never meant to be full-time. I've actually had this, proper wage conversation in a different organization. I went to the owner of the company and said, "Hey, I could literally go outside and pick up 5 cents an hour. You want me to give people a 5-cent raise?" And the question, or actually the response was, "That's a very good question. Two things. Your employees get 2 raises a year, right? If you do the math, And if they are, even slightly above exceptional or good employees, they could earn a 30% increase every year. Your average increase is what? And at the time, it was like 15%, right? Although, granted, I made more money, but that wasn't the point. So that is a fact. It's a hard fact, but it's a fact. I had never had the opportunity to make a 30% raise in any given year. The second thing he brought up to me was like, they can work to get promoted and make more money. And we had a system in place to help them to do that, right? So then my job as the employer was to make that very abundantly clear. And thirdly, the cold hard fact, he goes, and I'll tell you this job was never meant to be a permanent position. This was supposed to be a part-time job. It was never designed to support a family.
But at the same time, they're hiring full-time employees.
That actually, technically, they're not. They're like Amazon, for example. They don't hire full-time. It's kind of like,
but
at the place I was working,
the other place you were talking about, I wasn't going to be specific about it. But
yeah, they weren't full-time employees.
None of them?
Nope. They were never hired as full-time employees.
So they were never hired with the expectation that they would work 40 hours a week.
Right, exactly.
But they did work 40 hours a week.
Close to it.
So they're like, how do you reconcile the two differences there? Because you don't have enough employees. Otherwise the store doesn't have enough employees to be able to not have everybody working almost 40 hours a week, right?
Actually, that's not true either. I could hire people and have well into 90% of the employees working quote unquote part-time hours, never getting close to 40 hours a week. 32 hours at tops, 35 for a few. But everybody else,
but even then, I mean, 35 hours a week. Okay, so I got 1 hour off every workday. Then somebody who's working 9 to 5.
35 hours a week but that's my point.
Right. But it's like saying, okay, I'm going to hire you. You're not a full-time employee, but you're going to work 39 and a half hours every week, right? Like, you don't meet the 40. I mean, the company, one of the companies. No, I know, but I'm
not saying it's right. I'm saying that understand that a lot of companies are not structured to say that a majority of our staff is going to be full-time.
But that's where I'm saying, like, then your business model is not success. Like, it's not legitimate. If you can't operate with full-time employees, then your business model essentially sucks and you should fix it. Like, maybe charge a little bit more for your prices so that you can actually pay these people an affordable wage. I mean, you're willing to subsidize the prices of other items on the menu, but you won't subsidize the wages of your employees?
That's hear me out. In my mind, like the two things aren't
the same.
They're not the same.
I understand that, but at the same time, it's money being spent somewhere.
But understand that most companies spend on average in their P&L upwards of 30% of their income on revenue, on payroll.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where, like, if you're not careful, you can make whatever you're selling uncompetitive. So it's a balance.
But that's, I guess, again, where I come back to, I mean, and I'm not saying, that everybody should be making $100,000 a year, right? Like, I'm, but I still just, because I don't know. The idea that you build your business model around, we only have part-time employees, but those part-time employees don't technically really have enough time in the rest of the day to be able to work another job to then make enough money to support. And I get that, like, sure, it's not supposed to be one person that is supporting an entire family on this salary. Like, I do get that, but
the part-time employee, in my humble opinion, right, in this country, was designed for, like, when, and this is, I have no other. So when there was a time where, like, if one parent stayed home and the kids went to school and they got bored.
Yeah. Or, kids in high school, right? Like there's
Right.
another, you get done with school,
That's
college kids, you get done, you go work, right?
that's where the evolution of the part-time employee of this country like came into play, and it's stuck that way. Most of our like employment laws are based around that also.
Yeah.
If you look at overtime laws and how they've been changed since like the mid 80s and stuff, it was all designed around like where we were in our society, right? So I know there's a lot of nuance, and I'm not trying to say that it's right or
No,
wrong.
I know you're not, and I'm sorry if I'm making it sound that way. When I ask these questions, it's more just it's not meant for like to question specifically what you're saying or put it as though you're the one that you believe that it's right, but it's more just my frustration with, I guess, the fact that this is where we are with some of that stuff, that it feels like, okay, the government says if you have employees that work 40 hours a week, you're a full-time employee, and these are some basic things that those employees should be have access to, or within the marketplace, we've essentially said full-time employees receive some sort of insurance coverage typically, right? They get some sort of time off program, you get sick days, whatever it is. Even within that, right, then you have your part-time employees who say, it's 20 hours a week, right? Is 20 to 30, 20 up to 40, essentially, right?
Right.
But that's where I think, so then you have company X who comes in and says, ha, 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 great, you're going to work 39 hours a week and we're going to consider you a part-time employee, so we're not going to offer any of these benefits. And I get what you're saying is, okay, then go get a job somewhere else. But in some cases, that's not entirely an option for some people.
And you're not wrong. I mean, the Affordable Care Act didn't help that predicament either, because that's where it forced people where they were getting like 37 hours were considered full-time employees. So then they lost like 5 hours.
Yeah.
There were companies that were providing healthcare at a very competitive rate. Sometimes, and I can say personally, like I know the healthcare of this one company I worked for was actually better than the Affordable Care Act. What people were getting like offered in the health marketplace. So I think that when as a country we make blanket statements without really digging into the details, it doesn't bode well for the employees. One reason I'm so anti unions, I think some companies should fail. If I'm being honest, I think they should just fail. Their predecessors had made the problem like worse than what it should be. You came along and you just you went with what they were doing, and then you get caught holding the cookie, right? So, but there is opportunities to make better environments. The one example I would use that my stomach turns every time I hear quote unquote gig workers. That is like there are no tax benefits for the people that work those jobs.
Right.
There are no, they're considered independent contractors. A myriad of problems. It's like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
We're
going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, we've expanded the problem that was probably not so exasperated prior to the Affordable Care Act, and just made it 100 times worse. Right. Now you have people at Uber and Lyft trying to unionize. It's like, but you're an independent contractor. Like that makes the problem that much worse.
Well, so I think, and correct me, but if I'm wrong, but if in the case of Uber and also Lyft, part of the issue is that the way that the app basically selects drivers forces them, in a sense, to be available more often. The more often you're available, the more often that you're going to get selected, the more rides you get, the more money you make. And if you don't participate often enough and all of that stuff, then you're not going to get selected, and it's going to be that much harder for you. And so you almost have to work that job full time in order for it to really make any sense. And again, like I get, because the point is, then don't work that job. Right. But it is, I think, it is one of those things where, yes, people get into it not realizing, and then they become dependent on that. Right. Or, they have a loved one who becomes sick and they're not able to work. And so they're like, well, I'll just do this more. And now it's like, well,
it's almost predatory, like employment.
it is in a sense. And that's where I think, like I understand people's frustration with that, like, because it would be so great if we lived in a world where people didn't take advantage of other people, where they didn't build a business model off of, 39 and a half hours a week, or this, gig economy.
What if it was 39 and a half? Like, what if it was 32 hours a week and you made $13 an hour, but you're almost guaranteed to get $13 an hour in 32 hours a week, right?
Sure.
That is a more level playing field. Now, the problem is when you start to dictate what companies should and should not do, that's when the employee, this is not looking at it in depth.
Right.
I can just tell you from personal experience, if companies are trying to do the right thing, because it costs you, like the employee you hired to replace them and train their replacement,
right,
and the lost productivity
twice as much,
costs you twice as much. So I'd rather invest in the front end and keep the employee for twice as long as what they would have left.
Yes.
And not worry about that expense on the back end. But a lot of companies don't think that way. They think about the front end expense and they forget about what it could cost them later on.
Yeah.
Now, if
you got a bunch of cheap bastards running these companies.
Right. Well, because
I'm sorry. I'm just making a generalization, obviously, but it is just kind of true.
Yeah, for public companies, yeah, it's all about bottom line and like returning some type of return for the shareholders. I get that, and I'm not anti corporations or companies. I'm just saying
either.
Like, but I do think the pendulum shift it's way too far to one side.
It feels horribly out of whack right now, and I think that's why you're starting to see more talk about unionization, is because people are trying to look for some solution. And I'm not saying that it's the right one, because I'm with you. I think unions absolutely present their own massive, set of problems. I mean, and I think you can look to the existing unions, that are out there, the United Auto Workers Union. I mean, the NFL, right? Like, the NBA is one where that players union probably has done more for their actual members than any other union out there. But it's, I don't know. Like I agree. I feel like things are way out of whack right now. And so I think that's part of the reason that you're starting to see this. And I think for a lot of the consumers, this whole cancel culture and boycott and stuff is kind of their attempt to participate, right? To show solidarity, to say, look, I believe you have like a good service here, Amazon, but I also think that you need to treat your workers better.
But you know what the big swing and miss is on Amazon? They're not making as much money on their Amazon like product services as they are with cloud and logistics.
Yeah.
And so that's the misnomer. It's like, that's not even the right punch.
Okay, I think the issue is I see what you're saying, that it would be more effective to cancel your Amazon cloud, hosting services for a month.
I use DigitalOcean.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not saying yours, but
no, I'm saying like I do, like, I may not agree with, like, I'm just saying, like, I know where to punch at, basically.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll use DigitalOcean. Now, I do know that it's kind of messed up, but I use DigitalOcean for that same reason, because I know they're getting their money from logistics and cloud services.
Right.
Plain and simple.
Yeah. And ultimately, you also recognize that, okay, me not buying, not using an Amazon cloud hosting server isn't ultimately really going to affect Amazon, but it's the thing that I can do to say, which I think in a lot of ways is no different than what some of the cancel culture / boycott is about, right? And I'm not talking about Amazon specifically anymore, but just in general, the idea of this cancel culture.
But cancel culture is, again, it's a distant relative, very unfocused. And that's what bothers me. So my daughter was sharing with me, apparently like millennials and Gen Z are beefing. I'm like, yo, that's a thing.
Of course.
Um, and I'm like, but why? Because apparently somebody said that like Gen Z was trying to cancel Eminem. I'm like, first of all, hip hop is not down with that because like he's one of the greatest lyricists on the planet.
What are they
And
trying to cancel him over?
I don't know. My daughter showed me this TikTok video of some chick just
Oh no.
railing.
It's on TikTok. I mean, then
Yeah,
he's
but
done for.
yeah, yeah, no. I'm like, that doesn't sway me one bit. Um, and I get what and why people want to quote unquote cancel somebody, right? But understand like your point that you made that you don't agree with somebody, so you don't rock with them. That's all it is. Like, yo, I don't
Yeah.
rock with what you're doing, and I'm gonna like that's it.
Yeah.
People will start to recognize and like your thought on Michael Jackson. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I think you're 100% right. Like some people, the allegations of whatever MJ was doing.
Me?
Yeah, I know, right? I was like, I couldn't have said that better myself, you know? Like my daughter gives me like grief about, like R. Kelly wrote some of the greatest songs and some of the best R&B in the world now. And
Chris Brown. I mean, like
yeah,
you can go down the list, right? There are plenty of issues that you could theoretically take with a lot of different people that produce art or culture or music or whatever it
yeah,
is, right? Or that are politicians, most of all, probably. Um,
like Raphael.
yeah.
I just don't.
So I'm glad that you brought this up because I really wanted to toot my own horn, and you kind of gave me the perfect platform to do so. So Andre was referring to some stuff that I had written on Twitter. I guess over the weekend. So I woke up, I think it was Saturday morning or something like that, and this woman, Brigitte Gabrielle, I don't know who she is. I'd never heard of her before. Her profile on Twitter says she's a survivor of terrorism, Act for America founder and chairman, New York Times bestselling author, national security expert. But anyway, she basically said the left is trying to cancel Mumford and Sons because one of their members tweeted in support of a book written by a Trump supporter. Tell me more about how conservatives are the fascists. And I happened to see it right after she posted it. And so I was just like, well, this is stupid. I'm really tired of this whole argument that like any form of, disagreement is some attempt by the left to cancel somebody, right? First off, like you can't cancel a person, right? I mean, like Gina Carano did not get canceled. She got fired from a show because she became less marketable on that show.
Right.
That's all it was. And that's how capitalism works. Like, and the fact that people don't get that and they want it both. I mean, and I love, like, because
you can't have it both ways.
No, but it is like it's voting with your wallet, like that's ultimately what it comes down to. And the other point that you referred to is, like, look, we all have the opportunity to make a choice on this, right? Maybe you don't care, not you, but you out there in general don't care that the banjo player from Mumford and Sons, like is a big anti-Antifa fan. So a big fascist is, I guess, the way to... That's cool. Go buy his music. I mean, it's not cool, but it's like, that's your choice, right? And nobody is saying that he can't promote this book. It's just that ultimately, like, your freedom of speech, first off, as we've talked about repeatedly, the First Amendment itself in the United States means the government can't, basically squelch any, attempts to speak. It means nothing about companies. It doesn't say anything about social media platforms. That is not the new town square. Twitter does not have some magic power that makes it, a free speech platform. And second, like, you have the choice to make these decisions on your own, right? Like, do you want to continue to listen to somebody's music when there are allegations against them? I still listen to some of Michael Jackson's music. Thriller's like one of my all-time favorite songs. You tell me every Halloween I gotta go without listening to Thriller? Like, and that's just kind of like my choice, right? I'm not saying that it's right, that I'm like justified in doing it, but
that's why I don't care about celebrities' personal lives. Like,
right.
I really don't. It's like we're all prone to making mistakes. We're all prone to having judgment calls that everybody else may not agree to. Now, I'm not saying like OJ level stuff where like that's deep, right?
Yeah.
I'm not even going to say Kells. Like, I don't listen to, like, I predominantly listen to hip hop and Spanish music. So Kells doesn't even get like he's not in the rotation.
Yeah.
But nor am I saying like he's justified in like, whatever he's guilty of.
Right.
I don't care. It's like, I really don't care,
Yeah.
I
mean, and there's plenty of artists that we listen to that we don't know,
mm-hmm.
their whole history.
Yeah. Like one of my sons, he is a musician. I always tell him like, you don't want people fact checking you, right? Like you're every lyric you write, it's got to be dope and it's got to be legit. Never like make something up.
Yeah. Don't give people an opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, so for me, and I thought what you put was dope. I also thought it was dope that you got a bunch of people that liked it. So that was brilliant.
That was by far my most popular tweet of all time.
But what I still revel at is the fact that people they're afraid of the dialogue, right?
Yeah.
They think that we have to be just because we're using the same platform for communication doesn't mean that we're always going to agree. There will be dissent. Like there's the fact that people think and believe that we're always going to agree because there's a commonality is asinine. Like, I can't get over it enough. It's like for example, the drama in the palace in the UK.
Whew.
First of all, that is on
Oprah.
No.
Okay, to be fair, what has she been doing the last like several years? And all of a sudden she's like, she wakes up one morning and she goes, I'm going to destroy the monarchy. Like,
but like low key in my house, like we're like going like, yeah, but we don't care. We have our own problems in our country.
Yes. No,
we're spending way too much time on.
It's a massive distraction is what it is.
And I get the mythology of having a kingdom, right? But they kind of abdicated their rule over their country almost 1,000 years now.
Yeah, the whole thing is so ceremonial. Like,
yeah,
like it's in title essentially only. There's no real. Basically, you get to live in this giant palace, but you're under constant observation, and everybody. I mean, now granted, most of them seem like they don't mind all of that constant observation and pressure to be royal whatsoever.
Right.
I mean, I won't make too many comments about what it apparently did to Prince Andrew, but
I don't really I don't have a dog in that fight. Like, I really don't care. And I understand there are only a few remaining countries with monarchies. Spain, I think all the Scandinavian countries have them still, and the UK. I don't really care.
I saw a fantastic analogy, I think, from basically Ireland's take on what's gone on, with the monarchy and everything. And it was like, it's like living next door to your neighbor who's really obsessed with clowns. And so they decorate their entire house with clowns. They put clowns in every window, and all they ever want to do is stop you on the street to talk about clowns. And then someone commented, "Oh, and your grandfather was also murdered by a clown."
Yeah, because I mean, like, I guess Meghan Markle, like, her and her husband are really in love. I was never like, I've never been into the trappings of a monarchy. I just think that's kind of like weird, and for a couple of reasons. One, because it's weird, and the second one, I think that I think and believe that our desire to have people dictate what we do for us is a sign of weakness in the human like psyche.
Now, Loki would disagree with you
Yeah,
because he believes that humans are happier when we have somebody, you know.
actually he wouldn't be wrong.
No,
If you ever read Exodus, that was their big downfall.
well,
right?
and I mean, I do think that there is a certain level of that we are experiencing even now in, like there's just been I feel a huge, like, just kind of abdication of responsibility
Yeah.
for certain things, right? This, like, I mean, you talked about the monarchy basically abdicating their power to Parliament.
The Parliament,
right?
yeah.
And in a lot of ways, here in the United States, the people have abdicated the power to the government and said, here, you political class, you ultra wealthy, or people who are somehow able to fit in with that group in some way, shape, or form, you guys figure out how to run all this, because I just want to buy fast food and watch TV. And if anybody spoils,
The ending of Game of Thrones.
yeah, the ending of Game of Thrones or this week's Real Housewives, like, I'm gonna pitch a fit.
I don't know. You know what that kind of reminds me of? So I watched Raya and the Last Dragon.
I haven't seen that yet.
It is a beautiful, dope movie, and I really enjoyed it. On my way I was driving somewhere and I was listening to NPR, and I still need to change my radio station.
You got a new car. Don't tell me I still need to change my radio station.
Yeah. And apparently, now this is where, like, I kind of I parked in a speed bump. They had there was a segment about how this movie didn't have the right representation of Southeastern Asians. And it's, first of all, it's animated. And I'm not trying to be, please don't take what I'm saying. Like, if you're listening, you're like, and you're Asian, please don't take this wrong way. Because as a black,
at Chris and Andre on Twitter.
as a black man, there are times I'm watching like movies like, oh man, I got two like pop culture things to say. Yo, I'm totally about to lose my crap on this. So, like, as a black man, I'll see black people in movies, but they're all Brits.
Sure.
I'm like, I don't lose my crap over them. I'm like, all right, well, that's dope. And I'm not mad at,
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Hate Idris Elba?
No, you can't. Like, I'm not allowed to.
Yeah, he's handsome.
And then it's just like, but it took away like the late, and I understand what she was saying because she's of Southeast Asian descent, but I didn't get it. I couldn't connect to it. I was like, why do we get to a point with representation that we can't accept like the first step? The first step is whatever it is, and you kind of gradually get to what you feel is complete representation. Whether it's looking back on Sidney Poitier or Cicely Tyson, and for me, or Harry Belafonte. There's a lot, Hank Aaron. There's a lot of people where where they were wasn't ideal, but it was a start.
It was
right?
It was the first step, or a step along the way.
Yeah, and so for me, the representation argument is starting to piss me off a lot, because maybe it's just where we are, in our society, but I just don't. I'm confused on why you can't enjoy the first step.
So
You tell me your white male perspective.
No, I know. I mean, like, I think, as somebody who has, spent the majority of his life feeling oppressed and, really underrepresented, especially in pop culture and media. No, that's...
You're an idiot.
I am an idiot. No, look, I think I agree in principle, right? That I think yes, it's very important to acknowledge the steps that we make along the way, right? And to say, like, okay, this is a step. But I think where we are right now is a lot of people feel the need to point out how it's not enough, right? Or to say, you know, yeah, this is a step, but if I can't accept it because then this is where we stay for too long. If I don't point out what's wrong with it or where I feel like it needs to be, then people may get the wrong idea that Hollywood's going to make 50 more of these for the next 50 years before we actually get around to getting some what we feel is real representation. I'm not saying that one way is wrong or right, but I think that's part of the psyche that's at play there, as somebody who has absolutely no stake in that game whatsoever.
Yeah, and I just think of it. Yeah, and you're not wrong. I mean, because and I know you're trying to be objective there, but for me as a black man, it's like, yeah, but we just had Michael B. Jordan and Idris Elba be like the sexiest man alive.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not saying that we should try to hyper accelerate these things, but it's just kind of confusing. Like I'm confused on what is the end goal. Like I can almost guarantee you, for example, in the media, Netflix has figured it out. They understand that representation is important, right? Any Netflix show I watch, like it's that they produce, I can almost guarantee you there would be a LGBTQIA representation. There's going to be a black person, either biracial or like non-biracial, more than one. And now the other coin toss is they might be British, or yeah, they might be British. Like that's almost going to happen. So I'm going to see that, which is I'm not even shocked by it. I just expect it. They understand what representation means to their audience, right?
They're trying to provide characters for a lot of different people to ultimately connect with, hopefully, right?
Yeah, but the problem I often see is that does it take away from the story?
Sure.
And
right.
that's
is it done at the detriment of it? And I think yes, like in certain cases when it's not, deftly handled, it can kind of be like diversity for diversity's sake, right?
Right.
And
which is awful.
Yeah. It's not, that shouldn't be the ultimate outcome here. Is not, the point is see, and this is interesting because I think like in a lot of ways we talked about this previously with President Biden's declaration that he was going to select, I think first a woman and then, a black woman. And, right. Some people felt like, well, why would you shoot? And I think we both kind of understood he already had a pretty good short list of who it was going to be. And so he knew, he felt like ultimately the best candidates for the job were women.
Right.
And then they were also black women. Like, it's just kind of, that's how it worked out to some degree. I mean, like, look, I understand that in politics, visuals and optics play a huge role in that. So yes, I'm not sitting here saying like that didn't play some element, but it also isn't like he went and found some completely unqualified person and said, well, you're a black woman, so you're going to be my vice president.
Yeah. He already had the cards in his hand. So that was, so his delivery of that statement was kind of off kilter, if I'm being honest, but I think he already knew like the most qualified people. And I could probably agree with everybody on the short list because they were qualified. And I am pro hire the most qualified person. I will find a common ground with them.
And that was going to be like what I kind of trying to finally get around to is that the point of diversity is that you are considering all of the potential candidates at face value, not based on, well, it's like in the NFL with head coaches, right? I personally believe that there's a huge influence is that people want to hire people that look like them or that they feel comfortable with because they look like them, because they feel like, well, you probably had similar experiences growing up, right? There isn't going to be some disconnect between us because of that. I'd like to say that, in a lot of cases, that's obviously not a requirement for people to get along and work together.
You know what? You want to hear a funny short story? Then I'm
I
going to get to
do.
my second pop culture thing that
Yes.
I don't know how I feel about yet. I was in a parking deck and I parked next to a Sierra.
What kind of drugs were you buying in this parking deck?
I was buying a little bit of truck envy, right?
Yeah.
It was a beautiful black Sierra, like chrome accents. It was just gorgeous. And I'm walking towards my car and I'm like, yeah, this truck is nice, yo. Like, I'm like, yo, I should have bought this. And there was a guy walking in the parking deck and he was walking towards the truck. I'm like, hey, is that your truck? And he goes, yeah. I'm like, it is beautiful. We talked for like 10, 15 minutes, just about family life, kids, stuff like that. His daughter is preparing for college, and I told him about my daughter getting ready for college. And so we ended the conversation. I'm like, hey, you know what's really cool? That we literally just had this conversation in one of the craziest times I can remember in this country. And he's like, yeah, me too. Right. He's a white guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah,
Southern.
he drives told me he
Well,
drove a Sierra.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Black with chrome. I mean,
yeah. And he's also got a boat. So I'm like, yeah, that's, but I mean, just a real, and I was like, yeah, I really appreciate it. You know, just kind of reinforces my feeling that I can't get caught up in like just stuff, you know.
Yeah.
There
and then he goes, MAGA.
And he's in the trunk of my car right now as we speak. But anyway, and the second part is what's
the second pop
Bridgerton?
culture reference, right?
Bridgerton, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. The other poshy.
God, my wife is like in love with the Duke of whatever he is. He was on SNL. We watched it, and she's like fawning all over the guy. So screw that show. No, great. I don't know what the show's about, but it's one of those shows where I like pop in and pop out of. I'm like, oh, what's happening? This is gonna happen the next 3 episodes. But it's cool. In his SNL opening, he made a statement that actually rings true. It's great that people that look like me can see somebody that is taking a leading role in a show that's gained so much popularity. So that ties back to the representation thing. Oh. So, and I think that I can expect it. I think that, you've heard me say this before. Society will always like beat legislation. Social change will always happen before there's legislation. Social change will always happen before there's the change in commercials. We talked about commercials before.
Yeah.
Like there are certain things where like we can set the norms, and I'll even do like a double tie back to Amazon. Look, you're trying to swim upstream for no reason. The real solution is create something that fits the requirements you're looking for. Customers will go there because they believe in that mission. That's one thing that's missing from capitalism right now. People don't believe in the mission of these companies because they don't really have one. It's really to go out there and make money.
Yeah. Read the actual mission statements of most companies these days, right?
Yeah.
Very rarely, I would imagine, are employees mentioned. Outside of probably a little bit of lip service.
Yeah. There are 2 companies locally that, one I don't use because I don't need their services right now, but I was behind a Baker roofing truck today,
mm-hmm.
and their mission statements on the back of their trucks. And it said something to the effect of, our mission is to like pretty much do well,
mm-hmm.
do it at a profit if possible.
Yes. I used to love the commercials on the local sports talk radio where it's like, our mission is to do good work at a profit if we can, at a loss if we must, but always good work.
I can tell you if somebody said roofing company, You know what would automatically come to my head?
Baker Roofing.
Baker Roofing.
Yep.
And it's because that's the right mission.
Yeah.
I like for plumbing, I use JD and Sons, and they're somewhere in Durham. Most of their plumbers live in Hillsborough and the surrounding areas. They charge me a little bit more, and I know that. But I've never met or dealt with such professional and thorough technicians.
Yeah.
Ever. And I know for a fact I pay more. I know it when I look at the invoice. I'm like, yeah, I probably paid like $90 more. But I'd rather fund their mission than fund somebody that I'm questionable about, like what they're going to do, or they're not going to stand behind their work. And that's what I'm saying. I believe that companies, there is a market for those companies. It may not be the biggest swath of the population for whatever reason, but they're going to keep their lights on. It's no different with Amazon. Sure. Hey, boycott, have at it. I bet you in a week they'll still be there. Goya beans. Like we haven't bought Goya products like since your boy said that what he said. And it's like, yo, but there are alternatives, right? Yeah. And provided there's an alternative, consumers will go to the alternative.
Yes. And that's what cancel culture in a lot of ways really boils down to these days, you know? Like I think where it crosses the line in some ways is that like in certain instances, the social pressure that people try to place on other individuals to participate, right? But at the same time, I still think like it's a very valuable tool for the end consumer. Like
it is. The part they're tripping over themselves on is get your message out. Where do they miss the mark? Now let me decide. And what's the alternative, right? Yeah. If you don't provide the alternative, then like, first of all, Amazon, that's all right, Moby Dick. Like good luck with that one.
Yeah. What's the alternative to Mumford and Sons? Oh, literally any music.
Anything else.
Anything.
John Mayer, like I don't listen to his music. But
for a very good reason.
There's a lot. I mean, one, I don't know, like the only thing I know about him is like he was in a Dave Chappelle skit. That's it. That's all I got. But the reason why I will never listen to his music is his Playboy article.
Yeah.
Like I will never, like if my daughter ever came home and said that she was a John Mayer fan, I'm like, nope, that's not allowed. Don't ever mention his name in my house because he devalued you at like for no reason at all.
Yeah.
If women, like seriously, feminist movement, if you can support John Mayer after he said that crap, take your movement and wipe your ass with it.
Should we like, I mean, do we need to cancel John Mayer?
No.
Let's do it. Come on. Okay. So all Chris and Andre show listeners, we are officially canceling John Mayer. There will be no more John Mayer listening. We will not buy his albums, not that we ever did. We won't watch that episode of the Chappelle Show. It is okay for us to watch the Chappelle Show now because Dave's getting money off of it.
Yeah.
We're good there.
But my dude legit said his penis is racist. Yeah. Like, who says that, yo?
I mean, John Mayer does when he's doing a Playboy interview because he thinks he's funny or that people won't call him out for it. And I mean, obviously, like he's gotten away with it for this long. I'd never heard that until I think you told me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I haven't ever I've never been I'd rather listen to Jason Mraz than John Mayer.
I don't know. Like, I don't know who that is. So
yeah, I know. Right.
So it makes me want to say, sisters, why are you listening to this guy? Because I don't even know who he is. Like,
because their body is a wonderland.
But I got his back. I got their back because it's like, yo, it's like, dude legit said that. Like, please don't ever disparage an entire group like of anybody on some crap like that. Yeah. How are you going to say your penis is racist? Come on, yo.
I was like, was it my daughter, my 7-year-old said something the other day, and I was like, or did something, and I was like, why did you do that? And she was like, I didn't do it, my brain did it. And I was like, So are you and your brain two different people? Because if that's the case, we have a lot more to discuss with your therapist. And she didn't get the joke, but I thought it was hilarious. And apparently
Yeah.
John Mayer and his penis have a lot to discuss with his therapist. But
Jeez, man. I don't know how that guy wasn't just cut off from the rest of the world after that statement.
don't.
Oh, I, I made a pun. I didn't
You didn't even mean to. Okay, so before we kind of close things out, I'm kind of curious. Do you have any thoughts on the ACC tournament? Did you watch any of the games today?
No, I was busy all day today, man.
No, I mean, you're a busy guy. I understand. I mean, I didn't watch any either because I am also, as they say, a busy guy.
I think Carolina probably takes it, but here's my thing though. If Carolina, I think they've only won the NCAA one time when they won the ACC tournament, or 2 times.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So like,
rarely do they win the ACC tournament and then go on to win the NCAA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't really care. Like, I used to be heavily invested in the ACC tournament.
Yeah.
As long as they beat Duke, I don't really care.
Well, and they beat Duke in the last game of the season.
Right. But Duke is having they had a crappy season.
Yes. Yeah. It has been really, really bad for Duke.
Yeah. And I'm a competitive guy. I would never revel in the fact that, like, when my biggest opponent is their weakest and I beat them, that was a win.
So you would not have been amongst the crowd that flooded out onto Franklin Street for the second time this season.
No, hell no.
Yeah.
That's that's not even a mercy kill.
Yeah, I know. Like, that's what I very confused by all of that. I will say that I don't think that my Wolfpack are going to win because I'm not such a homer that I'm incapable of picking some other team.
The girls team our women's team is doing bananas.
Yeah, the women's team. So major shout out to them for winning back-to-back ACC tournament champions.
Yeah.
Championships. Supposedly that is still not enough to get them a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament.
They're 7th, right? I think they're 7th.
They were ranked number 3, I think.
But I think they are a 7th seed.
No,
team.
they're not a 7 seed.
What are they?
Get the F out of here. Do you even know what it is that you're talking about?
Right now, no, because I don't really.
Yeah, I know. It's very clear you throwing out that the NC State Wolfpack. All right, here's the thing. State should be a 1 seed.
The women's team.
The women's team. No, the men's team that barely won.
I want you to clarify because I don't want you. Because I know how you are. You're like, yeah, but you agree with me. I'm like,
yeah, no, I know. I would. I'd be like, I'm talking about the men's team. And you'd be like, you're a dick. Okay, yeah, I guess they're already playing. So let me see. I think they ended up as a 2 seed.
A 2 seed?
Yeah, which is not a huge deal.
So Connecticut was the 1 seed, right?
I'm trying.
I didn't look at the women's bracket, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I know. I did not. I didn't realize that they were already playing.
I think that's unfair. I think that they should have a little bit of reprieve, and their NCAA shouldn't start the same week that the other regional tournaments are starting. I think that's crap. That's why women.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's why women's college basketball doesn't get the love they deserve. But.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna spend any more time looking for it because I didn't find it right away. But I enjoyed the season for the women. I've been very I enjoyed watching this season of basketball. I paid more attention to them this year than I probably have at any point previously after winning the ACC tournament championship last year. We have one of the best centers in the nation in Elisa Cunane, I think is her name.
Yeah.
who's apparently from Greensboro. Shout out to
Okay.
my former hometown. Technically, I live in.
You're like a
South.
hometown gypsy. Like
I am. Yes, I call everywhere my hometown.
yeah, I know. Like you're like, oh, they have a player that I like that
Yeah.
from here.
I
It's my
know.
hometown.
I spent all of 3 years in Summerfield outside of Greensboro, and every time Greensboro gets mentioned, I'm like, Greensboro, that 336, which is still my area code on my cell phone. So
You're
that's
such
right.
like a
That's right.
you're-
Internet. I just gave you 3/10 of my phone number. What are you gonna do? Can you figure it out?
man, you are such a freaking like gypsy hometown guy. That's
Well,
crazy.
okay, that's not even that true though, because I spent.
Tell me how I'm wrong.
Yeah, I will gladly. That's what this whole podcast is about.
Oh yeah.
Not this episode, the whole podcast. So I was born in Sacramento, right? At like 6 or 8 weeks old, I went to Michigan. We lived there for a little while. My sister was born like a year. We lived there. My sister was born. We moved back to California, again outside of Sacramento. I think we were in Elk Grove for like a year, and then we moved to El Dorado Hills, which is where we were for 13 years before we moved to Summerfield outside of Greensboro in North Carolina.
So you're now 14.
14, yes. Yeah, it was 1999, 15. And then I came to Raleigh to go to NC State in 2002, and then I moved to Cary in 2003, and I have been here ever since. So I've been here in Cary and now North Carolina longer than I've lived anywhere else. So like in a way, and you're right, I am a kind of a gypsy in my hometown, that I consider Sacramento and El Dorado Hills and that area to be my hometown, but I do consider Greensboro to be my North Carolina hometown because it was the first
That's where it gets
city
complicated,
that I
right?
lived in when I moved.
So for me, like pretty much a similar story, but it's all about Harlem to me. Like everything else doesn't really matter. It's like, that's base.
I mean, and the truth of the matter is like California is definitely like my home state, and El Dorado Hills is my true, like that's what I consider. If you ask me, well, where are you from? I'd say I'm from California. I wouldn't say I'm from Greensboro. You know, people will sometimes ask me, oh, like. Because I'll be telling them the story. Oh, I moved from Greensboro in 2003. They'll be like, oh, did you grow up in Greensboro? I'll be like, no, I lived in California before then, and blah, 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 blah. But now you know the rest of the story, as that one guy used to say on the radio.
So I'm still pissed about Bridgerton.
Wait, you're still pissed about it? I thought you were happy about it.
I'm happy about parts of it, but like, I don't have time to watch my wife fawn over another dude. That's just kind of.
Well, yeah,
it's weird.
That can be a little difficult sometimes.
Yo, and he killed it on SNL.
Is that why you don't invite me over anymore?
Yeah. The answer to that story is Andre doesn't share his toys. He was a middle child.
I'm trying to think. I feel like there was something else that I watched recently that I was going to talk to you about. I can't remember what it was. Oh, okay. So last night we got the Discovery Plus. Like I think Christy was able to get it through Verizon for free or something like that.
Okay.
There's a show on there called Luda Can't Cook.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Starring Ludacris. And it's basically how he can't cook, and but he owns like all these restaurants and stuff. And so he knows all of these famous chefs, and he goes and learns how to cook from these like world-renowned chefs and stuff like
That's
that
dope.
in different restaurants. And so
does he go Luda?
No, but like last night his mom was on there, which was pretty hilarious.
That's dope.
He went to like some Indian restaurant and learned how to cook a bunch of food, and then like did his own versions of things. But I don't know, it was pretty funny. It was entertaining. I enjoyed it. I think we talked about Polar last time. There was something else, I swear, that I watched recently, and I was gonna
not Bridgerton, right?
No, it wasn't Bridgerton. I haven't gotten in any new
You shouldn't
series on Netflix like that. Yeah, I'll think of it as soon as we're done, and then I'll be like, oh, son of a.
I wrote an article on our website.
You did? It's
Yeah,
the
it's
first
about
one to get published in forever.
Yeah, it's about the M1.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm in like a phase right now, so I'll probably write something about my phone this week or something like that.
You know, I was just thinking the other day that I need to get back on my movies review series, if nothing else.
Yeah, I might write a review for Raya and the Last Dragon. Really good movie. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it. And it's a beautiful story. Like, and I'm not like gushy over stuff like that, but I was like, this is a really good story. And not a lot of tropes, which probably that's one reason why I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It wasn't a tropey movie. I finished WandaVision.
Still haven't started that. I know you told me I need to, and it's on my list.
I will tell you that the ending was not quite what I expected.
I heard there were like supposedly some big reveals about Phase 4 Marvel movies or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm gonna probably That's all I got, dude. Yeah.
The question is, are we gonna get another Web Slinger movie?
We are. This Christmas. I'm not really
left her too. So I literally can do the Spider-Man meme. Or they can.
That's actually pretty funny.
For those of you listening at home, this might end up on YouTube eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I love this guy. Well, I did mention our website, the Chris and Andre Show, actually chrisandandreshow.com. There's an article about my M1 journey from makeup to breakup. I think Apple's hit it out of the park on this one.
Wait, from makeup to breakup?
I mean, from breakup to makeup. Don't correct me in public.
Well, I was just trying to make sure. I'm like,
yeah.
Do you not like your M1 now?
From breakup to makeup. And I didn't go too heavy into the benchmark stuff. I think all that's
God, that would have been so boring.
Yeah, that's so it's your mileage will vary on that one. But you can always find out stuff that we're rambling about or thinking about outside of our podcast on chrisandandreshow.com. Listen to our episodes on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Google. And if you're into it, you can, take our RSS feed from our website, plug it into your favorite podcast tool, and listen to every episode when they get published.
You're a podcast tool.
Yeah, you're not publishing anything.
Yeah, I know. You had to go and throw that in there. Like I was like, "You're a podcast tool. That'll be funny." And he's like, "If they ever get published," and I'm like, "Okay, I was gonna make that joke later." Now you kind of stole my thunder.
You can send us an email at the chrisandandreshow@gmail.com. Soon to change, but I'll get to it.
Soon to change, he's said for the last 4 months.
Yeah, and just because of that, it'll happen this week. We're always glad you joined us, and if you ever want to give us any feedback, questions, or whatever, we're definitely up for it. Send us an email. Hit us up on Twitter at Chris and Andre Show.
Just Chris.
Chris and Andre.
We didn't have room for show. I was trying to make it simple for the people.
Okay, just hit us up on Twitter at Chris and Andre. I'm not sure what we're doing on Facebook because
not much. I posted one thing when we had a new episode, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's a new episode!" And then that was like a month ago, and we haven't done anything else since. It's just Twitter now. I've honestly started to abandon all other social media platforms, and I'm going whole hog on Twitter now that is where my star has shone the brightest. And I was gonna wait to make this announcement until the ink dried on the contract, but I'm actually going to be leaving the Chris and Andre Show to start my own solo career as a podcaster now, where I will just read the funny tweets that I post. So you can find me no, I'm just kidding. That's not true at all.
Yeah.
I would never do that because I would never do that. Like nothing would ever happen. I would never sit down and make an episode because I wouldn't have somebody else like sitting there being like, dude, get your fucking shit together and come do this.
I was thinking like he's got like 40 episodes ready to.
Yeah. 40 episodes recorded, not a single one edited. And then I'm going like, how to build websites. Google.
Oh man, such a good partnership.
It's serious.
But we're glad you joined us. As always, I'm Andre.
And I am Chris.
And sometime soon we'll talk to you. You'll hear us.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you soon, but we're not sure when you'll hear us. But thanks for joining us.